I think the pay is important, right? Like, so when we think about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, all those things don't matter unless someone's basic level of needs are met. So the pay
Sure.
is important. And not that you were saying it wasn't in the trades, but I think that it's important to me that when we think about that long journey, understand why you're being an entrepreneur in the first place too. So understand the goals that you have for it and the ambitions behind it, why you're doing it. If it's just to reach X revenue or just to reach a certain amount of money, that may be fine, but just understand what it is you're going for. And I think that'll help you through that journey.
Today's show, I sit down with an owner entrepreneur, someone that has been in the family business since before they could even think about going to work. And he's so passionate about helping entrepreneurs and seeing teams grow. He's actually started his own consulting company. He is now the owner of Simon Home Services and J.A. Simon & Company. And I am really excited to talk about not just how owners can slow down and really take advantage of the things that are important in their business, but also what we can do to attract new people into the trades. Welcome to today's guest, Jordan Simon. Hey, Jordan, thank you so much for being here today.
Ryan, I'm happy to be here.
We met, I don't know, a month or two ago and got to talking a little bit. And I was like, this is a guy that needs to be on my show. Not only did you grow up in the trades, family business, but you now have your own consulting company working with entrepreneurs and helping them achieve their goals and probably so many other things. So I want to ask you, what do you think is the number one thing that holds most entrepreneurs back when it comes to either growing or scaling their business?
I think it's a frame of mind, right? I think that in today's society, we're pushed a lot of times to, I'm at this age or I'm at this point in my life, and I should already have X number of dollars. I should already have this big of a business. And I think that as entrepreneurs, we have the big goals, we have the big dreams. We pretty much know the path to get there. But I think just having that mindset of this may be a little bit longer of a process, and that's okay. To enjoy that part of the process and the everyday of it is really more important than thinking about the end goal, whatever that may be for someone.
That's that whole journey is more important than the destination mindset, right?
Yeah, I mean, and there's some quote out there that says the person that enjoys walking will get farther than the person that's just worried about the destination, right? So being present in the process of it all is what I think is the fun part. And I think there's obviously struggles to it. It's never, these success stories are never truly just overnight. So there's pain points, but that journey is what really kind of builds yourself and builds the appreciation for what it is in the end.
So let's dig into that for a minute. You've grown up around the trades. I think you were sharing that your first time you went out to a plumbing job, you were 8 years old. So you've definitely been around for this journey. Let's talk about this for a minute. What is this journey? I mean, how does this transform? What is it supposed to look like? Why do you think people don't like it? Because I know in today's day and age, so we're moving. I'll give you a quick example. And I found out the place we're moving to does not have same day prime delivery. And for a moment, for a hot second, we said, is this really where we want to move?
Right.
Right? Like, I think we're programmed to be instant gratification, get it now, all that other stuff. But what's going on in business that we can actually control and enjoy when things aren't going right? Or if there's things, I think you had mentioned this, sometimes things we think it should take 6 months, but it's going to take 6 years. Like, how do we get through that? How do we change the way we think so that we actually enjoy that?
Well, and I think that there's some piece of it that it's okay that all of it's not enjoyable. There are going to be bad days. And I always tell people, like, you overestimate what you can accomplish in a year, but you underestimate what's going to happen over the course of a decade, right? So keeping that long-term focus is really what helps me kind of stay grounded in it. So, like, it's okay to have bad days. Every part of it's not going to be fun. And I think if you take away the social media driven constructs of like, oh, you're going to drive these fancy cars or have this, and maybe that's true. And maybe that is what your goal is for entrepreneurship. But for a lot of people, it's just that freedom, getting their time back and being in control of their life and of their work. And I think if you're focused on those things, even in the bad days, like, I'm still doing what I want to do is how I kind of think about it.
We talk a lot about entrepreneurs getting their time back and how building the right team and having the right people that you trust is one of the easiest, fastest ways to do that. Also helps you with growing the business. What are some things that you've seen work for entrepreneurs or maybe even yourself when it comes to getting some of your time back and being able to enjoy that journey a little bit more?
Well, I think if you're starting out, it can be a lot harder to outsource some of those things, but there's always tasks that you don't enjoy doing that it may be hard to bite the bullet and say, well, I'm going to hire someone to do this. But I've found for talking to solopreneurs and myself starting out, it's like once you kind of offload that, you get to focus on the things that you're better at and the things that really compound and help your business grow. And it ends up being worth it in the end. And then as our trade business has gotten to a larger scale, and now it's more about building those teams, right? So it's beyond, I'm not necessarily as much in that business as much as it is making sure that group that runs it every day has what they need from me. But what we've done, and I made the errors too whenever I first took it over, is like you try and always hire for like these skill sets. This person's going to check all these boxes, and it's like we kept getting people that maybe weren't a fit culturally or had other aspirations, and it wasn't working. So we kind of changed our framework to say, let's find someone that we know has a good attitude, is going to work well with the team, and then we'll train them to make sure that they're actually successful in their role. So I think it's different for different stages of the business, but it's all around making sure that you're focused on the things that are your strengths, and you surround yourself or kind of outsource those things that somebody else can do better than you.
Yeah, I remember we chatted a little bit about the idea of making sure that things are repeatable and consistent and having that training program. What have you seen work? Or what do you coach clients on for being able to develop that kind of stuff so that they can repeat that process regardless of who they're hiring? And like you said, less about the skills and more about the fit and that behaviors.
Well, I think for me, it's been about actually documenting what it is that we want to happen in a specific process and utilizing technology to make it easier, right? So if there's something in a role, because I always made this assumption that if we hire someone in accounts payable, they're going to know, hey, what their job is to make sure the bills are paid. But they also want to know exactly what it is they're going to be measured on, or they're going to be what's going to help them successful in that role. So we started creating actual checklists and then processes. So for each one of those tasks individually, I would kind of walk through with the screen share and me talking through it. We can record it. We put it in a Google Drive. We can create the test, or pull out the text from it so someone could read those steps. And we put that as part of our operating procedures. It's a shared folder where each of those roles, each of those tasks, it's like, here's what it is that job. And then here's how we think that would be successful. And I'm big on feedback. So if there's anyone that's in a role that they're in the weeds of it and they think, hey, this would help me do my job better, or maybe this will help the entire organization, like, please let me know, because I certainly don't have all the answers. So I think being open to understanding that you put people in those positions for a reason. Like you hired them for a reason, for a purpose, so they understand how to get that job done. And if they're in it every day, they're going to come up with ways to get it done better.
Yeah, that is so true, because they're not distracted by the 27 other hats that entrepreneurs have to wear. And, it's interesting. You were talking about training and the example you gave. I have this picture of very detailed, structured training going through AP, step by step, how to do your job. And I can just hear a bunch of people listening going, yeah, but my people don't want me to micromanage them. And I don't want to micromanage them.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, the one thing I have learned having done this is people want to be trained.
That's
They want that.
Yeah, and I took it to the extreme. So whenever I agree with that, like I always hated to be micromanaged. So I was like, I don't want to do it to anybody else. So it was like I tried to be as hands off as possible, and it created like instability where they just didn't know exactly what they should be doing. And I don't think that those tasks are micromanaged. They don't have to look at it. That's just a reference. You know what I mean? Like this is how, and it's more of a specific, like with our technology or with our platform, like maybe they didn't use that specific software before, but here's how it happens in our organization. I mean, there are some pieces of it that have to be documented for our purposes, but it's really just there as a reference. And like I think that we could, as an organization, could do a lot better job of training, but I want to be as resourceful to the people that work there as possible.
They want it. They really do. They want to know, especially if you're a small team. I've seen this too. And as entrepreneurs, we tend to hold all of our ideas and all of our everything in our head. Like we struggle to get it out and give it to our team. They want to know what's in our head. They want to know what our expectations are. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to document the process for them.
Well, and I also found that it's no matter how open door policy and how warm and engaging I can be with people, there's a lot of times afraid to ask because then to them, they feel like, well, I don't want to burden the owner. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. So a lot of people are afraid to ask. So it's like, well, just give them the information anyway, and then they can reference it if needed. That way they don't actually have to come to you with the question, because it's not that they don't like you or don't want to, but a lot of people just struggle with that admitting that, hey, I need a little bit of help here.
I know one of the things that you coach your clients on the consulting side of the business is just helping empower their team, like so they can empower their team to make better decisions. And when issues come up, be able to make the decision without having to check with the boss and all that other stuff. And I'm sure some of this starts with defining the process, what you want. But to your point, there's a lot of myths, if you will, like what I believe about my people and what my people believe about me. And if we would just talk, we would find out that we're all on the same page. What are some things that you've seen help entrepreneurs get through that struggle?
Well, I think what you just said, communication is always the first thing that I talk to new hires or to people about, or clients. It's like, you have to have whatever the communication framework that you want to use that works best for you, but there has to be a way that everybody can be in communication. But I mean, you and your team talk about this too, is how it's very important to have a mission statement that everyone is working towards, right? So I like to communicate so much with, especially the people managers and the leaders of the organization, that they know exactly, without even documentation, they know what it is that we want to do. And a lot of times they're comfortable making that decision because they know that we've had the conversation before. We're all striving for the same thing. And as long as it's in line with that mission, that I put them in place, and they're not going to get in trouble. It's kind of a weird way to put it, but for making a decision, right? It's inaction that would frustrate me more than making a decision and making a mistake. We can fix mistakes. I'd rather you do something that you think is right, and then if we can work on it together afterwards, than just sit there, do nothing out of fear of taking action.
Well, it gives us a baseline to work with, right? Like if you make a decision and it's wrong, well, now I know what the gap is between wrong and right, and we can fix that.
Right.
But when it comes to you just sitting there, I don't know how to change that. I don't know how to work on you actually making a decision. I do think that a lot of people are scared because they have been around organizations where, I think Seth Godin talks about this in Poke the Box. And he's like, we don't even get near the edges of the box. Because remember Johnny, 10 years ago, he got near the edge of the box. Remember what happened to Johnny? Nobody knows what happened to Johnny, but he's not around anymore. And there's just this fear of 10 years ago, something happened, or even 6 months ago, something happened. And there's this fear of, I don't want to take the risk because of what I saw happen in the past or what I believe would happen here.
Well, and that's what's kind of hard about maintaining.
Stop turning away work, burning out your team, and working so hard. Learn about the proven process that businesses everywhere are using to save time, save money, and hire all the people they need. We'll train your team to implement and run this process in-house so you can grow as fast as you want. Book a call with our team at corematters.com.
In that system is that you never want to overreact. So if I'm going to tell someone that you can make a decision and there's no repercussions, we'll just deal with it later. It's like, well, then you can't overreact once those issues come up. So it's probably just fits my personality better to do that. But I'm way more about, let's all be in this together, just empowering those people to make those decisions, right? Because I always felt like leadership isn't just getting people to do what it is you want to do. It's like you want them to do those things because they want to do them. Like they have to be motivated because they're striving for the same goals. And they know that as the organization gets there, that they're going to be rewarded, whether it be through their just happy that they accomplished a goal, whether it be financially or whatever it is, but they want to work towards that too.
You know, I use we're all on the boat together, right? Yeah. And if the boat's going to sink, they're going to go down too, and they know it.
Yeah.
And so when they're aligned to that mission and they're excited to be on the boat with you, like if there's a problem, they're going to want to fix it. Or if you think they're the problem, they're going to want to have that conversation.
Right.
Like, I see that there's this fear of talking to people now because, oh my gosh, what if they leave? How can I replace them? And so we're just so afraid. Like we walk
Yeah.
on eggshells all the time.
No, I agree. But do you think that there's a piece of that, if the ship sinks, then we're all going down together? But do you feel that some of the people don't buy into that because they feel like they can just leave at any point, or does that typically work?
I believe that people don't like looking for work.
Oh yeah,
I believe that it's super stressful. Studies show that it's super stressful.
yeah,
So I think that, yeah, you're going to have some people that are of a transient mindset that like, oh, I can just go do the next thing. But they're not happy people because they're always dealing with the stress of finding a new place
right.
to work. I think that for a lot of employers, it's bad enough that they're willing to walk. But when things get tough, people don't walk just because there's opportunity.
No,
It's too much of a risk.
I've always told, and I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I never want someone to stay that doesn't want to be there. If you feel that we're not doing a good job and you have a better opportunity elsewhere, or you want to have an opportunity elsewhere, it's like, I'll help you do it. If it's not worth, in my mind, it's not worth us begging you to stay or trying to meet demands based on if someone truly doesn't want to be there. Like, I've always just tried to make it, this is such a good place to work that you're not going to want to leave. If you do, that's okay. And I truly am okay with it.
It's interesting. I've had these conversations in the past, but it's like, hey, if you don't want to be here, how can I support you in finding that next opportunity? So
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like I kicked you out to the curb, right? Or made things feel really bad. And we actually coach a lot of clients on that. Like if you believe someone doesn't want to be there, you don't want them there anymore. But it's not so bad. Like you're still tolerate each other. Like we shouldn't have to tolerate each other at work. Life is too short.
No. Well, I just got to that point because it was like we had these individuals that it was like, that they don't want to be there. And it's like they're kind of going through the motions, doing what they need to do. But at the same time, it's like, what's that doing to the rest of the culture? And what's that doing to other employees, like the good ones that are looking at how you're dealing with that, right? Like the best way to really anger those good employees is you demonstrating how you manage the poor ones. And if you're bending your back for them and not doing things in line with that mission just to keep people around because you're afraid they're going to leave, then everybody else sees that.
Well, and it's not just the rest of the team. It's what's it do to those people's family. Like they know they're not performing. They
Yeah.
know they're not wanted or happy or it's healthy for them. And then they go home and they take it out on the kids, right? Or the spouse. Like that's not fair either. Yeah, I tell people, you've heard the concept ABC employees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Your A are your top players. Your B are the ones that they do a good job. You don't have really issues with them, but they could go either way. And then you get your C players. Those are the ones you keep around just because you want the second set of hands and you're scared. And what I tell people is you find out that most of your B players are A players that care so much, they take care of your C players. So it brings them down because they're always covering for them. And if you would just let those C players go, a lot of your Bs will become As. And you'll develop this overnight. You'll be like, how are we getting so much done without those two extra people? Well, because you're not putting out all their fires and dealing with all their drama and dealing with all the low morale and all of that.
Yeah, no, with the plumbing company alone, there was 2 crews. So it was like a group of 3 or 4. And it's like, by getting rid of them, we actually had an increase in revenue. So how's that possible? You know what I mean? So I 100% agree.
It's super counterintuitive. That's why I like to really talk about like the mindsets, especially when I'm talking with people that are consultants that have been around the industry. Like what's the mindset that keeps you going, that helps you do that? Because I think we fall into these traps. We fall into these myths, these things that we believe that aren't true just because, well, everybody deals with this.
Right.
One of the myths that I shatter all the time is that millennials are lazy and entitled. And so is Gen Z. No, they're not.
Well,
right?
Have you ever seen that image of like the newspaper headlines? They go back, I think it's to 1886. Every 5 years, every generation says this about the next generation. So it's like, it can't be true because if it was, then it would have been true about you as well, or us as well. So yeah, I think that, and the other myth that I think, especially in blue collar, is that nobody wants to do this work. We see it a lot where there's going to be these shortages and we're not, teaching people about what's out there. And there's part of it's true, but if you create a good place to work, you will get people that are applying. What I found is that we have plenty of applicants. We just needed a way to better train them. And I think that's what a lot of it is. A lot of these companies are looking for guys that have 10, 15 years experience that, again, go back to those check boxes, right? So I need them to be able to get on a van and be profitable immediately. And it's like, I think that we could change the focus to get the people that actually want to do this as a career, that are interested in it, but maybe don't have the experience, and then build strategies around training them. And maybe we can train them quicker than in the past, but it always goes back to getting the right people first, right? I mean, rather than focusing on those skills or intangibles that, I guess they're tangibles, right? That we measure.
Things you can train.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I really see that a lot. People are like, oh, we've got to do something to get the next generation because my employees are aging out.
Right.
Like in the trades, I think 40% are going to retire in the next 10 years. Like it's insane. The shortage is going to get that much worse. But then when I say, okay, let's go get some new young whippersnappers that have never done this work before, they're like, no, I don't want that.
Yep.
I want the guy with 20 years experience. And I was like,
it's fun.
Yeah, but everybody wants that guy. Create some new ones. I just saw this. AI is a big thing right now. And I don't want to go down this AI thing, but I've seen numbers as much as 300 million people are going to be out of a job in the next 5 years around the world because of AI.
Mm.
I also saw something that in the white collar space, they expect in the next, I think it's 20 years, 80% of those jobs will be replaced by computers in the white collar space. And Mike Rowe came out and he says, yeah, he goes, you know where we're not going to have AI?
Right.
Is going into your house to unclog a toilet or put in a new sink or fix a busted pipe or to build your house. AI is not going to be taking those jobs. Not anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. And it's like, we're going to end up with more people that want to do it because it's going to be the jobs that are available. But there are people out there now that want to do it. I firmly believe that.
One of the things that we see in the apprenticeship space, and we do work with NCCER, National Construction Education Research Company. You know, the big thing is getting the parents to shift their mindset about the trades.
I do agree with that. I think I was guilty of it too. Is like, we talked about how I did my first plumbing call when I was 8. And it's like, my dad was in this. I mean, he was an entrepreneur himself. So he had multiple different things that he did. And I always just worked alongside him. But then you hear from your teachers or from your counselors and at home, it's like everybody wants their kids to be successful. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that we've just undermined what the kids' skills are or what their, ambitions are to tell them about this thing that they have to go do, which is the college route. I knew that I didn't want to be a plumber after doing it in high school. And I think that part of that was just that it sounded cooler to say that I was a financial analyst, and work in a skyscraper, but sitting there making less money than I would with my journeyman plumbing license in a cubicle for 8 hours a day just was not a happy way to spend your time. And it's like, so even on the worst days and the worst jobs, at least I got to be outside or interacting with people rather than just sitting behind a computer. And it's like, but that title sounded sexier than being a plumber, but it's like, where did that get into my mind? That was more important than actually being successful and happy.
You think back to the 30s and 40s and World War I, World War II, and manufacturing and all this construction that was happening. And people were proud to say they were an iron worker or that they were a machinist and all this other stuff. And for some reason we flipped and that's gone now. But I mean, that's what built America.
For sure. It's a vanity thing, right? I mean, it's just about, like you said, I think it starts with parents. They want to be able to tell their kid that they're an engineer or an accountant rather than that they're a plumber, even though, like in my case, with a graduate degree and working for a Fortune 500 company, it's like you still were making less. And it's like you work more hours and it's like you have no flexibility because when you can work on your computer, it's nowadays companies expect you to work all the time. And it's like, why are we doing that? Why are we saying that to people when there's so much out there, so many opportunities for people? And that's what's neat about the blue collar industry is that you can do everything, right? So you can start as an apprentice. You can work your way up to a master plumber, electrician, or HVAC technician. You can work in the accounting department. You can do marketing. You can own your own business. All that is available to you in that one industry that no one wants to push their kids towards.
Well, hey, Jordan, this went fast.
I get long-winded. No,
this was great, though. I mean, I think we started off with what is it that's holding back entrepreneurs? Your big thing was they rush it. They are so focused on the destination, they don't enjoy the journey. and just taking your time to, I'm going to say smell the roses, right? Like just enjoy the journey that you're on with your business, with your team. Economies ebb and flow, they come and go. Like all this stuff that we worry about today isn't going to be an issue tomorrow. And as long as we just know that that destination is there and enjoy the journey, I think that was huge. And then we got onto this whole thing about reaching the next generation for the trades in particular. But I think that goes for a lot of industries. It's not just the trades that's struggling right now. There's a lot of industries out there that are struggling with that. And just how do you reach the next generation? And we didn't get time to get into it, but just being there for them and helping them understand like all the benefits to being in it. And you mentioned a lot. Financial analyst sounds cool, but you stare at a computer screen 8 hours a day, or
Right.
you can get outside and you can go visit people and you can be doing other things besides just sitting in a cube staring at a computer. Like there's so many benefits to being in the trades that aren't pay. For some reason, we just focus on the pay, but there's so many other things we could do to sell it, not just to the kids that we want to see come into the trades, but also their parents.
Well, and I'll make this quick, but I think the pay is important, right? Like, so when we think about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, all those things don't matter unless someone's basic level of needs are met. So the pay
Sure.
is important, and not that you were saying it wasn't in the trades, but I think that it's important to me that when we think about that long journey, understand why you're being an entrepreneur in the first place too. So understand the goals that you have for it and the ambitions behind it, why you're doing it. If it's just to reach X revenue or just to reach a certain amount of money, that may be fine, but just understand what it is you're going for, and I think that'll help you through that journey.
Absolutely. Agree with that. Hey, Jordan, if someone wants to learn a little bit more about you, I know you got the plumbing company, but you've also got a consulting company that helps entrepreneurs with this stuff. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm big on LinkedIn, so you can just message me there, any social media, but the website's JordanASimon.com, so go there, check it out. But I'm always open to questions, concerns, or feedback from what people are hearing.
Thank you, Jordan, for being on the show today. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
All right, Ryan, thanks.